excited to be here as a guest. Very fun. I'm excited to talk shop.
I've been timing your calls. They get shorter.
For those of you who don't know, Jen is the co-founder of FASE, as am I. And we have a beautiful Facebook community for music producers. You can head over to facebook.com/FASE Audio UK and join us over there. We've got a beautiful Facebook group filled with amazing music producers just waiting for your questions and connections. So Jen, you've brought us in a track. We're going to dive deep and do a wee bit of production analysis on this piece. So what's it called? Tell us a bit about it, and it would be great to know about the writing process as well, because you are an artist producer as well.
Yes, cool. Right, so this track that I have today is called Make Believe. It's from an EP called I Love Me Not, which I can't tell if I might regret the name of that EP later on in life. But it's basically about my relationship with myself, I think. And over lockdown, I had a lot of time with myself, and kind of unwanted or not, I had to do it. And so, I just found myself being really unhealthy and doing things that I was aware that weren't good for me. Like, I was on social media a lot. I was constantly on my phone. I was just, every symptom of imposter syndrome I felt like I had. I was just in this rut of constant, criticism from my own head. And I recognized that kind of towards the end of 2020 is not a good thing. And I'd been living it for a long time. So I had these were kind of like beats that I'd started off with. Originally, that's what Make Believe was just like a song I had that wasn't finished. Like, the verse was different when I went into it. And so I just, was having a really rough day. And this song, kind of not like me at all, just sort of fell out and was written within an hour kind of thing. And I knew what I wanted it to be about as soon as I kind of written the first verse, I guess, and was like, oh, this is going to be about myself and how I pretend that things are okay, and I'm quite high functioning and being like, everything's fine, I'm totally fine, no need to worry about me.
Everything's on fire behind you.
That's me. Like that meme of that little girl that's okay. Looking at the fire build. That's me. It's like everything is just exploding around me, but don't worry, how are you? And that's me. And so, but I think a lot of people are like that, and the make believe. Well, I'm hoping I'm not alone in this. Maybe you can tell me if this is you as well. But I create scenarios in my head of being like, oh, I'll get this done, and I'll do this, and this is the person I'll be in 6 months, and I'll be totally fine. And so I was building this fake life of everything's fine, and I'll do what I want to do, and I'm okay. When actually I wasn't, and I kind of had no one around me to say that I wasn't except myself, because I think I'm someone who's very much if someone asks me how I am, I'm always like, yeah, I'm fine, I don't want to talk about it. And also I find it hard to talk to people. So this song is definitely about the unhealthy relationship with yourself in your own head.
There's a tendency for people to say, I will be okay, and everything will be better when XYZ happens, or when this thing, comes along, or whatever. So I think a lot of people listening, I think, will be able to relate to that feeling of what you just said, because we're made to believe that as well, aren't we? It sells things to us. Buy this thing, it will make you happy, so we kind of internalize it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's get stuck in then. We're going to just kick straight into the intro. Here we go.
We don't communicate like we used to do.
I think the intro starts off with, it wasn't always like that, the intro. It wasn't until I finished the song that I started putting in the soundscapey parts into it, because I felt like it's quite a lo-fi in my head EP. It's not polished at all, and I kind of, that was a choice. And And so the soundscape came from just like a sample from labs of like the London Atmos train sounds. And I thought like that totally resonates with me because in, the year before the pandemic, it was just, I was doing nothing but traveling on trains all the time and doing nothing but just like sitting with my headphones in, talking to no one, going from like place to place to place. And 2020 was a year of sort of like the come down from that and really analyzing what had been building up in me for a long time. So yeah, the trains, atmospheres, and the drums, I guess, were like a way of, for me anyway, trying to say that this is really busy and it's like my head a lot of the time is just totally filled with stuff and you're just always racing a little bit. So I used a lot of different sampled percussion sounds again to sort of emulate that busy vibe that I was going with, and I wanted the track to be a mess because I felt like I was a little bit of a mess. So and I think lots of different sounds, and there's like little quirks, and there's like a flute sort of percussive thing going on in there as well, and and it's all kind of, I think, buried in the track kind of deeply as well. Just to add to that mess and busyness, and it makes me feel a little bit like, oh god, there's too much in this, but I made it that way.
That was the point, right?
All my thugs. Guess you'll never know what's hiding here, 'cause I'm too good at playing make-believe.
We've got a sub bass hitting in. Tell us about your choice there.
I love a sub bass, and don't listen too much to all of my music at once because you'll realize it's the same sub bass. I just love, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because like I quite like trap music or like that hip hop with that sort of like fuzzy bass. But yeah, I've all of a sudden, especially in the last like couple years, every production I have has got some sort of rumbling sub bass in it. But yeah, I liked it because the song without the kind of bass being added to it felt very mundane, and it was the same. And you're a producer as well, so, and I'm sure if you're listening and you're a producer, you'll understand when you listen to a song about 100 times, it becomes the most boring thing you've ever heard in your life. So I feel like I just had to make every like verse, pre-chorus, chorus, everything just a little bit different for my own sanity. But yeah, that's where the sub bass came in. So if you are looking to diversify your track, I recommend using a heavy sub bass. It's fun.
Go deep, go deep or go home, guys. That's it. Amazing.
Yes, I need a shirt with that. Oh no, that could be taken the wrong way.
Connotations.
And you don't go deep or go home.
Joke's always on me. Why do I dissipate all my energy on the ones who don't love me?
Around like 1.5 minutes, there's sort of this vocoder. It's an Ovox synth that's being used, or like the Ovox plugin that's being used to distort my voice. And that's something that like I still don't really know how to use Ovox, and it's something that I need to learn, but I just love playing around with it and being like, well, this key sounds not in the same thing with my song, and this sounds awful. But yeah, I found that particular combination, which I have no idea what it is actually on the track, worked really well. And in my head, this kind of makes me sound nuts, but I was like, that's sort of like social media and the internet talking to me. It's like your whole life is sort of in, like, I just like that robotic sound in a song that I was talking about. Like, I'm creating this world that lives on the internet, and I post pictures of myself and people, like that. I'm so fascinated by people who post on Instagram and then everyone looks at them and goes, oh, their lives are perfect, and then they'll come out and be like, I'm miserable. Like, it's not my favorite thing, but like I like the honesty of like people coming out and saying that, because I think the internet is turning into a place that's all make-believe, and nothing, you don't know what's real and what's not. And so I like the idea of just putting in this like unrealistic sounding vocoder to sort of emulate that and talk in that kind of way. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. And obviously that being the title of this track as well, Make Believe, and that kind of coinciding with all of the busyness that's in your head that you were saying when you started writing as well. And a lot of that busyness is make believe, isn't it? It's storytelling, it's narratives that we get fed from social media. I love how you used the plugin as a way to create an other voice. So a personification of social media and of the impact that it has. It's good to know that you don't really know how you came about it as well. I like that because there's exploration, there's creativity, there's, instead of approaching it with, everybody's very different, of course, but approaching it with an understanding, hat on, of technicality, approaching it with a more creative playfulness, a curiosity.
That childlike quality that I feel like most adults have lost, of just playing and exploring for the fun of it, is something that is so valuable. You know, like no one draws squiggly lines on papers anymore and just, you know, and just for the sake of it. Like everything has to be now, we have to do it with a purpose. And I feel like that's wrong. Like playing is so much fun, especially in music production. Like it's a creative act. If you're not being creative and everything you're doing is the same, or you're going to the same, you know, compressor settings, Ovox settings, whatever it is, then you're not exploring. And it's a little, even if you like carve out an hour a month just to say, I'm going to just play with something and I have no idea where it's going to go, I feel like it can only benefit you as a creator and a producer.
Okay, right. So we're going to dive into another part of the production here as well, which is the songwriting, lyrical aspect of music production too. So give us a little bit of insight about what's going on in this section of the song.
I wanted the Ovox lyrics, like that vocoder sound, to be really, I don't know, almost like they're punching close to home, but they kind of don't sound home because they're sort of, so almost like you don't recognize yourself in a way. It's like you're saying these things and you're aware that you're admitting something's wrong, but you haven't fully digested it, I guess. So like for a lot of that part, it's like it's not very social when your life orbits a screen. I just love love that people call them social media apps, yet most of the time, you know, if you look at someone on a bus or on a train or out in the world, it's all just inward on your phone, like people walking their dogs on their phone, like no one smiles at each other. And I just find that so fascinating. It's like, yes, we're being social in the context of we have access to everyone in the entire world that's on these apps, but in our own communities, we're the most antisocial that we could ever be. And that fascinates me. So yeah, lyrically, I think, I hope that it reflects that and reflects that sort of inner struggle of going, well, you know, I'd like to talk to people in real life, but I'm currently not able to do that living in 2020. And also, you know, I met more people in 2020 than I have done in years, just from like Zoom calls and just being like, oh, hey, want to do something? Because we've got nothing else to do. So yeah, it's like that struggle of, it helps me so much in my life and I have so much work and stuff from the internet, but also the other side of that is it can be super unhealthy and addicting, and you know, I don't want to spend my entire time staring at screens my whole life. That's not my goal. So yeah, I hope lyrically it reflects that. The thing about social media is it feels so innocent. Like you're like, oh, well, I'm just keeping up with friends and I'm just liking their pictures. And all of a sudden you're looking at your ex-boyfriend's, girlfriend's, mother's Instagram. You're like, this isn't innocent. And like, this is just weird. You know what I mean? So like, not that I've ever done that, I should say, but like that, I just like the idea that people think it's like, no one's ever done it. But I just like the idea of it's sort of pitched as this thing of like, it just keeps you connected, that's all. But actually, you know, if you look at the statistics and, you know, there's kids now that like 2-year-olds with iPads. And I'm like, I'm not able to deal with it in my 20s. I don't know how children are going to deal with, you know, constantly being scrutinized and looking at your face all the time and making sure, you know, do I look fat in that post? Are people going to notice that? And it's like, the answer is no. No one ever notices. It's like, oh, look at my one role that I have there. And it's just the most toxic thing disguised as this innocent, it's just social media. What harm can it do? So yeah, very interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that. I saw like buggies and prams with little iPad holders. And I feel the same. I feel the same. Lots of dopamine going off in those tiny little brains as well. It's amazing how, again, you encapsulate this in such a groovy, catchy pop tune. I think that's a really great skill that you've got as a writer and a producer. And you use your voice a lot as well. You're very vocal. Obviously, it's your lead vocals too. So there's lots of harmonies and backing vocals happening. Tell me a bit about how you produce them and how you approach backing vocals in a track as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of harmonies and adding lots of vocal layers. And I think over my years as a producer, I've sort of like relied on them a lot more. I think I used to just add instruments after instruments and sort of bulk out the frequencies, just being like, oh, it needs more, it needs more. But I've sort of stripped that back and just used the voice. And it's been really fun working out harmonies and what I'm going to do. But I think as like a producer, it's like a secret tip is like if you want to make something sound fresh and new, just add another harmony in it and like kind of bury it so it sounds like, oh wow, this has changed. And it's like one of those tips that when I unlocked it, I felt like, oh, I really enjoy doing this a lot. So the use of harmonies is something that, yeah, because there's like that picking petals off of roses, do I love me, do I love me not? I really like that phrase, but I was like, it gets kind of boring just singing that, 4 8 times. So I was like, how can I change this? So I was like, I'll just add a stack of harmonies on top of this and just have multiple me's singing the same thing.
We're getting to the end of the song here. So I struggle ending songs. Sometimes I just go until my song's over. And I'm like,
now, and you're like, done.
Outros and intros, man, they do not come naturally to me. And I'm like, I'll just start on beat one, straight in my lyric, just straight into the verse. So tell me about how you chose to end the track, both music production wise and songwriting.
Yeah, no, like I'm the exact same. As you kind of get to that, I'll sit in Logic and just listen to the parts that I like over and over again and just not deal with like, oh, well, I'll finish this tomorrow. And so, yeah, the outro, God, I feel like for this whole EP, I just was stuck with like really short songs and not really knowing where to go with them. And I was like, I like the lyrics and I like where it's all placed, but it just doesn't feel like songs. They just feel like little ideas. So the outro, I think probably like I spent months just playing with different ideas and like making a guitar thing. But I'm a big fan of silence and just like shocking people into it ending. And this song felt very much like something I could get away with doing. And so, that sort of final ending word, everything just stops. And it's like, I like that idea of you're sort of waking up a little bit and just coming from this sort of make believe world. And because you hear the trains again and all that soundscape coming back. So it's kind of like, to me, it felt like a daydream. Like if I was standing in a train station, this song is what's playing in my head, and then like my train comes and oh god, I have to get on it, and that's where I wake up, and that's the ending of the song. So that's how I ended it. But yeah, I'm totally with you on sitting for a couple of weeks being like, how do I end this, what's happening?
I love that book ending with the found sound again. And oh, that's amazing. I really enjoyed that when you just expressed that to me there, that like that I keep hitting the microphone. I must get better. I must get better at this. That you start in with the outside world sound, then the song goes internal. That's what's happening inside. And then we're back to the external world sound again. Oh, I'm out the daydream and oh, I need to jump on my train now. And I think that's really cool. That's really cool. I love that. And it gives it just this nice symmetry.
I always remember I had a lecture or something tell me like if you're struggling to think of something new, always go back before you start something like going forward. I guess like something in the song could work if you've got some shakers in or a guitar part. Try using that because it's like a nice little tie-in, I guess, and just a little callback, I guess, is never a bad thing. So yeah, it's a
I
little
love that.
tip.
Go back before
Help
going forward.
go forward,
Review before creating more. That's a
Yeah.
great idea. Use what you've already got and already made and see
Or see if you can make something new out of it. Like, it doesn't have to be like completely old, but yeah, it's also a good way of just getting you to think a little bit more out of the box, and it's something that has helped me with songs. But yeah, if that's a little tip that anyone can use it.
a nugget of gold.
A chicken
Absolutely.
nugget.
That's it. You come to this podcast, you get gold. That's just, we should just call it that. Panning for gold.
Panic. Ooh, I like that.
Panning for gold. Are we creating the name of the podcast on the podcast before it's been named, but we'll be airing after?
Yeah.
Amazing. So we're going to jump in and listen to the full track. I hope you enjoy it now that you've got a bit more context and you can have a good deep dive. And stick with us because we'll be just having a wee last chat before we sign off. So this is Jen Athan with Make Believe.
We don't communicate like we used to do. I've been timing your pulse. They get shorter as the month rolls on. Am I paranoid or just high? And no one cares what I've been up to. You know I'm wasting time all night, scrolling through all of my confidence, double tap away my life. 'Cause I pretend that there is nothing wrong, hide away and lock up all my thoughts. Guess you'll never know what's hiding me, 'cause I'm too good at playing make-believe. Isn't it like a comedy? 'Cause the joke's always on me. Why do I dissipate all my energy on the ones who don't love me? Now I'm not saying that there's something wrong, but why do I just bottle up my thoughts? With me you shouldn't trust what you can see, 'cause I'm too good at playing make-believe.
I pretend that there is nothing wrong, baby. Staring at my screen until my hands start to bleed. Nothing seems to matter when I'm scrolling through the feed. It's not very social when you like opens a screen. I pretend that there is nothing wrong, baby. Staring at my screen until my hands start to bleed. Nothing seems to matter when I'm scrolling through the feed. It's not very social when you like opens a screen.
Picking petals off the roses. Do I love me? Do I love me not? Playing make-believe to bring the real world to a halt. Picking petals off the roses. Do I love me? Do I love me not? Playing make-believe to make the real world stop. Picking petals off the roses. Do I love me? Do I love me not? Playing make-believe to bring the real world to a halt. Picking petals off the roses. Do I love me? Do I love me not? Playing make-believe to make the real world stop.
There we go.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, for sharing your inspiration, the insight, and how you've went about producing. The whole point is to demystify music production and really humanize it for people, because it can feel like this very kind of techie world of ones and zeros, you know, rights and wrongs, goods and bads, and it's not. It's just as artistic as learning how to sing or learn how to paint or, you know, whatever other form of expression you choose. It is just another one of those. Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been awesome hanging out, spending time with you today, and I hope everybody listening enjoyed it. Follow us on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and we've got a mailing list. All the good stuff, right? All the good stuff.
Amazing.
Right, that's us for today. We'll see you all later. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
A comedy, 'cause the joke's always on me. Why do I dissipate all my energy on the ones who don't love me? saying that there's something wrong. But why do I just bottle up my thoughts? With me you shouldn't trust what you can see.